right, let's jump into it. It is, what is it, 19 past 11 on 25th of March. So obviously, yeah, we had those headlines this morning. 2 days in a row, and that we've had these kind of headlines, and I mean, typical kind of thing with the headlines going on at the moment. That yesterday we had some sort of I can't remember exactly what the headline was, but anyway, it was towards resolution, basically, of the war. We saw metals jump quite strong, and then obviously through Asia, they decided to kind of sort of sell it down in this kind of sort of this is gold here on the 1 hour, so to sell it down in this almost sort of flag fashion. We got a breakout, and look, admittedly, the breakout was a little bit sort of sketchy on the first move out. As you could see, a couple of back tests lower than the breakout point, and that this is a very sort of typical kind of sort of like break point in the sense of sort of like the back test, higher high, then another back test again, boom, 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 boom. And obviously, once you sort of broke that sort of breakout high, that's when we started to see things sort of take off and sort of obviously sort of move on here a little bit more. And, you could pretty much sort of say that, yes, this is moving towards, potentially towards 4,700 if it can sort of obviously sort of carry this bit on. Doesn't mean it's going in one move. I mean, we could sort of see some sort of back test like this moving up to the top over here. This isn't like a sort of incredible sort of, I mean, it's a bit of an odd sort of one picking these 2 points here, but as you can see, the sellers just picked up speed down here, and this is why you can use these. I don't do curved lines, but you can see that the sellers came in a bit quicker, came in a bit quicker, came incredibly quicker, so on and so on, all the way sort of coming down here. So, yeah, you can see certainly they sort of applied that pressure coming down the bottom side here, but this is still something that could potentially give us a little bit of a resistance or target and that for a topside move over here. Depending on sort of how fast or when it does come into it, you're obviously going to be coming into some of these horizontals over the side here as well. But should this thing sort of carry through, should we see a little bit more downside with the dollar, which I'll get to in a moment because I do think the dollar has had its three rejections, lower highs, into a sort of very sort of crucial area, as I said on the weekend, that, three tests into an area and the market starts to get a little bit jittery. Like one or two, like one, okay, yeah, cool. First probe, first time back. Second one, well, that's that three-leg structure. Third time, we've given it an extra shot and it's still not going through. It doesn't mean the game's over. It doesn't mean, okay, yep, so dollars going back to 90 or something like that. It just means that in this particular flow and pattern that you will see part of the members, participants in the market will go, hey, look, there's three attempts. We're not getting through. Let me take off the extra that I've got and reassess to how these things sort of are going to sort of work. And I'll get to that with the dollar in a moment, but I do think that potentially we have a little bit more downside before another rally attempt on the dollar. So we also seeing obviously sort of coming up here. But I put a post up yesterday, sort of. So 1 second. Trying not to sneeze into the thing. I did put a post up yesterday, sort of saying that the price levels I was looking for with this sort of breakout through here, and typically my trades are like from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here kind of thing. And for the most part, I took off on each of the price targets. I do actually have one still running, which is for me quite good. It's about $200 or so at the moment from these levels down around here. Yeah, so where are we at? So in around this sort of level down here, I think it was around so maybe the 20s or something like that, but about 219 or so at the moment, which seems to be going quite well. 5% obviously, so can't scoff at that. But anyway, beside the point, this is potentially, I think we've got to accept that there's going to be a little bit more upside through here. Don't have to accept it, but this is the way that I'm sort of seeing this thing to sort of play out with a potential pullback down to around 4,500. I think this is the crucial kind of sort of tell for it all. I mean, either one, if this is flips and runs, well, you can see there's no pullback, high demand. People got to get in, they got to get back into it no matter what. Okay, that's definitely got to go faster. That's fine. If we do get this sort of pullback here and we see a retest of these levels over here, which is the wick lows from back here, obviously sort of thought about it coming into the weekend. rejection from that first bit of news that sort of got us up here. If we do see a back test here and then sort of a move into this sort of structure here, there's a BR sort of second leg and then third leg. If we take out this high, that'll be then the next trigger. So basically, sort of any way we look at it, pretty much above sort of 45.60 at this point, I think we're going to see quite an accelerated move. Just for the fact that if it does come back here and we see the people sort of take out the, hold this low here, you've got to accept that there's people that are shorting this thing. Look, I'll short as it comes back up to retest this. Bang, they got in. Comes up here. They don't necessarily jump out straight away, but should it come back down here and they close those shorts, and that adds to the buying pressure, and we take out the bounce high, well, the kind of breakout of this sort of structure high, then I think that's what's going to sort of feed this thing to sort of moving a little bit higher here. So I still think we are potentially going to get a little bit higher, but open to the idea of a bit of a pullback, and we get back around that sort of 4,500. I think that'll be bought up, and then sort of confirmation of that move will definitely sort of just be over the top of these sort of breakout highs here. All right, let's tick along. Look, I do normally go to silver next, but we'll jump onto the dollar just because I was sort of speaking about it a second ago. And this is kind of what I was sort of talking about. And if you have a look at the sort of weekend analysis, so this is where we started the week, and I said, look, this is the level that I was kind of looking for, this 100 test. I said, look, it's either going to sort of come in early or it's going to come in later, but it was going to sort of come in. I sort of thought maybe a little bit later, so it would have come in over here. But again, I do price levels, not timing. Which, I mean, obviously timing's a crucial factor, but you know what I mean? It's really, at the moment, we're trying to sort of work out the structure of where the sellers are, where the buyers are. And it doesn't matter if the sellers come in at this point or the sellers come in at this point. If we do get a third rejection, which we did get from this level here, we see the market start to get a little bit jittery. And this is what I'm saying. This is your first move to probe to test. This is your back test. This is your second move here. So this is, because this is such a crucial level, and I covered this on the weekend as well, that it's worth that third shot. We got the breakout, we got the back test, structural, test these highs, lower high. That's a signal of a start of a reversal. So it puts the emphasis back on this swing level down here. Came back, broke through. Now you've got lower high and lower low. Because it's such a crucial level, the market goes, okay, look, we'll give it one more shot. Again, three lower highs. Again, back test these lows. You could say maybe this is trying to hold around this zone here. So once I sort of delete these little arrows, I'll sort of update this a little bit. But I would sort of say that this is potentially going to see at least another bit of a sort of a play around this sort of 98, 80 area. I'd be surprised if it goes much lower. I mean, certainly could. I mean, I have sort of seen these things previously in the past, and that years ago, actually, I remember, I think we were right near the very highs of the dollar, and we had CPI coming out, and that was the third test of those highs, and the resulting action was absolutely got smashed. Um, so look, downside, we've still got the gap down here. So should anything get back down here, I do imagine this to be a big buy up area, but this is a long way between here and here. Plus, it's not going to go in a straight line, unfortunately. So it's not such an easy sort of trade. But areas that sort of definitely sort of be interested in would be around here, maybe a little bit lower if you get to these weeks, but I'd be more sort of focused on this 98.70 area. You break 98.70 and you could potentially see a fast move. And then you'd be looking to these kind of areas over here. That's where you they're the two levels I'm looking at. So the 98.80, but should you break through 98.80, then 97.80 could potentially be on the cards. And we get this because we've got the lower highs. And this is what I'm saying. You've got this big move to get all the way up over here. It's done everything it needs to do. It gets to this level. Breakout, back test, that's fine. You can accept this part here. This is your warning shot. This is another warning shot. And this is kind of like, okay, no. I think we need to sort of pull back here. People got all these expectations of big dollar breakouts and that. It's clearly not happening. We've got lower highs. People are accepting lower levels for this sort of thing. They take off the premium. They take off the extra amount. Doesn't mean necessarily that you're coming here, and definitely doesn't mean you're coming down here. But it does mean that you could potentially see some deeper kind of correction for the fact that it's tried a couple of times. People have extra positions because if it does, the way it works is basically, well, maybe not the way it works, the way I sort of see it, the way I trade it is you put on your extra positions, you put on your extra weight in case it does break. And not just this, with anything. I'm not, obviously, this is a barometer. I'm not sort of trading the dollars directly, but well, DXY directly, I should say. I do trade the dollar, but um, regardless, the point is you put on the extra weight in the idea that it does break out. Because if it does break out, well, then you've got full weight, you got extra size, you got bang, okay, it's going to go well. You got max returns. Each time it sort of fails a bit, you go, oh, okay, well, the likelihood of this thing just breaking and running now is a little bit less. And if it's a little bit less, I don't want to be so risk because you know what? When it looks so strong, bang, we're breaking out, that's great. Now we've got to sort of question it a bit. Now we've really got to question it a bit, and people start to peel off a bit. And this is what could feed a little bit of a sort of mid-term, sort of medium-term sort of downside. And look, it doesn't, again, it doesn't mean that the dollar's over, but it means you take off the premium, gets down here, maybe people reload off. Because, if you think this thing's going to break out and you're still committed to the idea that it's definitely going to break out, well, where would you want to sort of be in from? Sort of holding here, hold to draw down here to go up here? No, you'd take off the premium, and then you'd look to add it back on down here. Maybe close the gap. We could always sort of look at that and then sort of move back up over to the top side there. So, look, I do think that we have at least some short-term downside with the dollar. I'd be watching around these levels down here. Certainly, if you break here, this could be something that could really sort of come down here quite deep in that. So, I don't think it's over, but I do think we have some sort of downside to come. All right, let's take a long, have a quick look at silver, because silver's another one that's getting a very strong sort of recovery here, up through 74. I actually just closed out. I probably left about 50 cents on the table here so far. But that's all right. We are coming up into a little bit of a horizontal sort of through here. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see something to this effect. I don't think necessarily we're seeing strong downside moves here. I would have liked that a little bit earlier. But certainly, look, if it pushes above 74 here, we could see this thing open up and moving back towards sort of, it's pretty clear. So maybe around 76.30, but should be sort of probably targeting 78. I don't know if the market's quite ready to give major breakouts. Kind of not a big fan of this bottom side here. You could say it's a bit of an overshoot. But certainly I think sort of up around sort of 78 potentially where this thing could be running to. Should it break through this 74.80 level here with a little pit stop along the way, maybe it's 76.40. All right. Just while we are on the metals here as well, have a quick look at the gold silver ratio because this one is sort of, I sort of cause like we were looking at a negative divergence here. Hadn't quite got that last push, but this is basically what we've been looking for. Yeah. Higher high out the top of the channel rejected. That's fine. Lower high down here on the RSI. Now, so the gold silver ratio loves a negative divergence. If you look at a lot of its highs and its lows, it really does sort of work quite well. Obviously, this one got another dip down here, but still, even if you look at it like that, that's a negative divergence. We had one, I'm pretty sure, sort of down the bottoms over here. For some reason, it sort of deleted half of the candles through this point here. Sort of shows up on the daily. Whoops. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Let's get back to something that's usable here. All right. So anyway, negative divergence. We are seeing this obviously play out down here. I would say you probably have a little bit more downside here as well. Be watching what's happening around maybe 70. This thing, if it does decide to pick up a little bit, as I said, this does actually connect to a connect to a point at the top. They're the kind of levels I'd be looking for. 76, which means obviously some more upside in metals, because gold silver ratio moving down is stronger metals. See what happens around, I reckon, around 60. Should it break down underneath there, then we've got a couple of levels that we could sort of potentially see a bounce from down along here. And then, I don't think, look, I never say never, but I think they're the kind of levels that we might be sort of looking for, which again, sort of if you're trading metals, you need to have gold silver ratio on your watch list. Obviously, it's not through some platforms, but TradingView definitely. But this is what's really sort of going to be sort of showing. And as you can see, this is quite a crucial kind of area. It's trying to sort of hold up around the 67 area, but we are obviously seeing this play out at the moment. So I would say this has probably definitely got some more downside, i.e. metals more upside, which goes in line with what I've just sort of pulled out with those levels with the analysis. And then sort of once we sort of get down into these levels, see if the market can sort of get a bit of a push back up and metals back down. So that's the to and fro. But they're the kind of three levels that I'd be kind of looking for. 60 40s, 59 30, 57 50. All right, and just finish off with Aussie here. And Aussie, we could see sort of like really sort of come down into the zone. So just check, yeah, the mic is mic is working. Is coming down into the lower side here. Look, this is an area that we've had marked out for quite a while down into this little thing. Even if we extend this across buy zone down here, this is a crucial area for Aussie to hold. And with the dollar potentially having a bit more downside, I can see Aussie holding this area for now. I don't think we're quite sort of getting this move to sort of come down here. I think certainly if we do get under 69, okay, bang, that's where we're going lower. But for the time being, this is kind of, one push down, second push down, pushing back up quite strongly. I don't think it's really necessarily, the secret sauce for Aussie going up and breaking out to the highs, but I could see a continuation of this whole sort of scrambled sideways mess for the time being. I sort of, with the market potentially selling the dollar off a bit, maybe Aussie back up into the high 70s, high 70 cent thing, sub 71 cents. And then potentially, if we see the dollar rally again, push back down over here. I think Aussie's just really in a bit more of a stall mode and that. So basically, sort of while the market is selling the dollar, Aussie is still a viable sort of candidate for a little bit more sort of movement here. And just to sort of keep in mind, we do have Aussie CPI tomorrow. So let's just put a bit of an alert above here. It's having a little bit of trouble to sort of get back up above the 70 zone here. But I think sort of certainly above 70, I could see this thing moving at least to 64 or 91. 60s and 90s, as I say repeatedly, if you trade Aussie, they're the levels to watch. That as well with the 20s. So I could see this have a little bit more upside here. Certainly it's got the RSI sort of backing it, should have want to sort of push up a little bit higher. But I'd be sort of looking up around this sort of like 70, 60. And if you break 70, 60 up around sort of 70, 90, I feel, and then maybe we could start to see a bit of a pushback from the dollar there. All right, just a quick one tonight. That's from me.